My name is Maggie, and Jasmine and I researched the Flipping the Classroom technology. The Flipping the Classroom model describes a teaching method in which the traditional lecture and homework elements are reversed. Typically, students watch pre-recorded lectures outside of class, which allows them to focus their time spent in class on exercises, projects, and discussions. There are a few steps that should be taken in order to successfully flip your classroom. Here, we will walk through these steps with you. The first step is simply deciding whether the flipped classroom is the best decision. There are a lot of parameters to take into consideration, the first being class size. An intermediate class size would probably benefit the most in that it can be appropriately split into groups. If your class is too small, it would not be very effective to divide the students up into even smaller groups. A very large class, such as one that you may see in college, would not typically benefit from a flipped classroom because it would be difficult and maybe even unproductive to split the entire class into groups. Class space is the second parameter to take into consideration. Ideally, a standard class would benefit more from being flipped than a lecture hall, just because of the room setup and ease with which a standard classroom can be moved around into groups. The third consideration is difficulty of material. This is really up to the instructor to judge the extent to which material can be effectively taught through an online lecture. Often, students benefit from learning difficult content online because they can watch and learn at their own pace, and go back to parts they previously did not understand. At the same time, some difficult lecture material is best taught in the classroom, where students are face-to-face with the instructor and are physically in the presence of the material being taught. Material that requires hands-on learning cannot be taught well online. This is one consideration, however, that largely depends on the instructor and the material that is being taught. If you determine that flipping the classroom could be very beneficial, you can then move on to the second step, where you have to decide whether to use a pre-recorded lecture from another source, such as Khan Academy, or whether you should record one of your own. Recording one of your own lectures helps you to build a relationship with your students, and it shows that you still care and want to help your students and connect with them on a personal level. This also allows you more control over the method in which the students are taught. This is not to say, however, that using another source is a bad idea. This too can be very helpful. Khan Academy, for example, records videos for a variety of subjects, and they are a free resource for anyone who wishes to utilize that content. The third step for successfully flipping your classroom is to set up, record, and then upload your lecture. You will need a webcam or a flip cam and can either use a whiteboard and markers, or you can set up your lecture so that you voice over your PowerPoint slides. This should be a one-time record, so it is a sense of the lecture style that students are used to. This simply means recording your lecture all at once, regardless of whether a mistake was made. It may also be helpful to find a partner to create videos with. Students often benefit from the back and forth conversations, especially when one teacher plays the role of the mentor while the other acts as a learner. Finally, you have to make sure your video is accessible to students online for a certain time period before the material is covered in class, so that they can watch the lecture at a time that is most convenient for them. Then, you can upload your lecture to a source that students can easily access and utilize.
Now that Maggie has told you the first steps of flipping the classroom, I, Jasmine, will inform you on the rest of the steps. The fourth step of flipping the classroom is to engage students in the recorded lectures so that they are not passively watching them or doing something distracting while the lecture is playing in the background. You should require your students to take notes in the video. This will give them a reference point when later studying for a quiz or a test on the topic. You could also give your students skeleton notes, which are notes that you write up yourself but leave blanks in for your students to fill in while they're watching the video. You could also require your students to ask questions about the video. This way, if they don't understand anything, you're sure to answer their questions when they return to class the next time. Lastly, you can engage your students in a discussion about the topic. You could do this before watching the video, which will get them thinking about the topic material before they watch it, or you could do it after the video, which gives them a chance to show you their viewpoint on what they learned and the things that you discussed in the video. This would also be a great time to implement the Canvas discussion board in order to engage your students before they even return to class. They could have posts, ask questions, answer questions that other students had, all in order to engage your students. Once the students have returned to class, you are ready to implement the fifth step. Divide the students into small groups to work on collaborative and interactive assignments that are based on the previous recorded lecture material. This allows students to focus and have less distractions than if they were completing their work at home. In class, the teacher is available to answer questions that students have, rather than them being at home and having their parents not be able to answer their questions. In addition to the teacher answering questions, other students have the ability to help other students answer these questions. So working in class in small groups promotes teamwork and social interactions and more collaborations. The sixth and final step is for students to complete an evaluation of the effectiveness of the course, so that the teacher has an idea of how to more effectively and efficiently flip the classroom in the future. Every class is different, so feedback is helpful to develop a baseline for successfully flipping the classroom. If students like traditional in-class lectures better than they do the online lectures, if they appreciated the skeleton notes, or if they even found them useful at all, this feedback will help the teacher better develop their skills on flipping the classroom. Additionally, any improvements that they could make, like having lectures released earlier or allowing students to work at their own pace instead of moving along as a class, would definitely help the teacher develop their flipped classroom into something that better benefits the students. If these steps are completed successfully, teachers should find that their students are less frustrated with the material because they have their teacher as a support when completing the work. Flipping the classroom is a teaching method that has potential to change the education system. This method is new and innovative considering this day and age. Technology plays such an integral part in students' everyday lives, so why not incorporate it into the classroom? The opportunity for students to learn at their own pace and attain assistance on their assignments in class because they watch the lectures at home is a great movement towards bettering their education.